Okay, hello everyone. This is Charity McBee. I'm the Chief of Staff here at Outcome Referrals. I hope you all can hear me okay and you're able to see the PowerPoint screen. It should say Iowa Department of Human Services Client Sharing Training for Behavioral Health Therapists. So thank you to everyone for participating. I'd like to just take a moment at the beginning of each training just to mention that I will be using a WellnessCheck demo account, that this is exactly what you will be seeing when you log into the live WellnessCheck platform. I will be using a therapist called Richard Jackson. He's a therapist that I've created in this demo account. He is a fictitious individual, as well as the clients that are listed on his shared client screen. So this training is for the Iowa Department of Human Services Client Sharing for Behavioral Health Therapists. There will be two parts to this training. In part one, I will focus on how to use WellnessCheck. I'll show you how to access your shared client screen, how to administer top to raters, as well as view your client reports and any other helpful functions that are available to you in WellnessCheck. And then in part two, it'll be a brief overview of the process that the caseworker takes. It's from their point of view when they add you as a therapist to WellnessCheck. And I thought that would be a nice thing for you to see, so you can see it from their end. So this is the starting of part one, how to use WellnessCheck. And to access WellnessCheck, you'll want to visit www.wellnesscheck.net/CW/login. And you can do this at your leisure. Now go to my browser. So when you do log into WellnessCheck, it brings you immediately to the WellnessCheck login screen. Now, you should receive, if you haven't already received it so far, a login for WellnessCheck. Now, this login will consist of your email address and a temporary password. If you did not receive this login, you will probably want to check with the head of your agency, or feel free to contact our customer service department at Outcome Referrals. I will provide contact information for our customer service department at the end of this training. You will also have that information in your top technical guide, a manual that will be provided to you as well. One other thing I'd like to mention too is we recommend that you change your password upon logging in, because you will be given a temporary password. I will show you in this training how to do that, where to go in WellnessCheck to do that. It's an easy thing to do. And you can also find instructions with screenshots on how to change your password in your top technical guide. So I'm just going to take a quick moment. I'm going to log into Richard Jackson's account. So when you log into WellnessCheck, the first thing you're going to come to is what's called the client dashboard. And you're going to see that it does state no data available in table. This is in fact correct. So you will want to go to your shared clients screen. And you'll do that by coming up to the blue WellnessCheck bar here at the top. You're going to come over to clients and select the drop down. And then you're going to select the shared clients listed on the drop down, and it brings you to your shared client screen. Now, this is the shared client screen for Richard Jackson. You'll see that he has 3 active clients listed. So your shared client screen lists your active clients. And you'll see that there are a few columns. You have the name column, which lists the client's name. You have the caseworker column, which lists the Iowa DHS caseworker that's assigned to this client. You have the assess column, with the manage link. And you'll see when I hover over the link, these little helpful bubbles appear. And then I recommend you using these bubbles to acquaint yourself to WellnessCheck. It's just a helpful feature. It tells you what you can do in each of these sections. Once you go through WellnessCheck a couple of times and you learn the different areas and parts, it's very easy to use. The next column is the reports column with the view link. This is where you view the report. And as I had overstepped and did not mention, when you select the manage link, you can provide the top assessment to raters via email, or you can print the forms. And I will go into each of these links during this training to show you what you can do in each of these sections. And then you have the last assessment column, which provides the date of when the last assessment was completed. And then you have the date of birth column, which is self-explanatory, and it provides the date of birth for your client. So for this training, we're going to focus on Lillian Cabero. And so I'm going to come over to the assess column and select the manage link. And it brings you to the rater screen for Lillian, for your client. You will notice that there are several columns in this screen. You'll see that Lillian's mother is listed as the parent under relationship. You have Donna Fitzgerald, who would be the Iowa DHS caseworker, is listed as the public agency worker of record under relationship. Lillian is listed as the client. And then Richard Jackson, the therapist, is listed as the clinician. The next column is the email column. And I want to point out, because right now with the stay-at-home mandate, a lot of us are working from home. The likelihood of using the email forms function will be an important function that will be highly useful to you when you are in the rater screen and you want to email a top to a rater, and you notice that the email address is missing for that rater. You'll need to communicate with the Iowa DHS caseworker, who will be the one who will need to obtain that information for you. Now, for TOP, which is also known as the Treatment Outcome Package, there are 3 parts to TOP. There's the consumer registration, which is completed on intake or for the initial TOP. You have the case mix, which is completed at intake or for the initial TOP. And then this is something that is updated every 90 days. And then you have the clinical scale, which we like to say is the heart of the TOP. This can be completed upon the initial TOP And then it can be completed as mandated by Iowa DHS. So we have some of our agencies will complete the clinical scale quarterly, monthly, or even every 2 weeks. It's really what the protocol is there. Now, the initial top will be completed by the Iowa DHS caseworker. Once they do that, then they can add you as the therapist, and then they can add additional raters. As the therapist, you will be providing follow-up talks to raters. Now, the follow-up talks consist primarily of the clinical scale, and at times, when needed, the case mix. The nice thing about WellnessCheck, when the case mix is due to be completed, there will a reminder will be posted that is due. And so when that is due, you will check off both the case mix and clinical scale. When it's only the clinical scale needs to be completed, you only need to check the clinical scale. Now, there are a few ways you can administer talk to raters. If you're in the office and you're working, let's say with the client, and you want to administer a talk to the client or to the parent, you have a meeting with the parent through the use of a computer or an iPad, you can select Take Now, and it'll walk you immediately through the process of administering the talk. A lot of you will probably most likely be using the email forms, as I had mentioned. If you choose this method of administering talk, you first select the rater that it will go to, select the email forms button. An email will be sent to that rater, which will include a link. That rater selects that link, and it will walk them through the process of completing the talk. And then another way you can administer talk is through or by printing forms. You can print the forms in English and Spanish. Currently, this is the only method of providing a Spanish form of talk to Spanish-speaking clients. We will have a Spanish version of WellnessCheck available in the future. If you choose this method, simply once again, select the rater, check off the forms that you will be printing, select the Print Forms button. When you go and print the forms, please be mindful that there are markings. There's barcodes and markings that are just client specific. So if you happen to print several forms for different clients, please be mindful that you're giving the right form to the right client, or the right rater, I should say. When the rater completes the form, they return it back to you, and then you fax that back into us. It'll be verified, and as soon as that assessment is verified, a client report will be uploaded to WellnessCheck. So I like to show you what the case mix and the clinical scale looks like online. So I'm going to select for Richard as the therapist. I'm going to select the case mix and the clinical scale. And for this training, I'm going to select Take Now. And it brings me to the start screen. So this is a good thing. When you see the start screen, I'm going to select the start button. And it immediately brings me to the question. It asks, if my client's participation in this assessment and treatment is voluntary. I select yes, but if a rater chooses to select no, it'll still walk them through the process of taking the top. So I'm going to select the next button. Now this section is the case mix. So there's 14 questions to this section. There's 2 parts. It asks you about your client and if the client has experience within the last 30 days or the last 12 months. It asks you to indicate from a range from all to none. As you can see, these majority of these buttons are pre-populated. This is because the initial case mix was already completed. And so because it was already completed by the caseworker, if you go into administer and redo when that 90-day period comes again and you go to update the case mix, this is what you will see. And you can adjust the answers to these questions accordingly to how it's impacting the client at that time. So as you can see on the case mix, you can see why this should be updated every 90 days. These are serious life-changing events that can greatly impact a client's behavioral health and their well-being. So I'm going to review some of these with you quickly. As you can see, the death of an important person in the client's life or a serious illness to an important person in the client's life. The ending of an important relationship to something other than death. A serious problem in the client's life with a teacher or a parent or friend, not enough support, housing problems, money issues, work problems, problems getting health care, any legal or criminal issues of any kind, any bad events, like witnessing a murder or experiencing abuse. So I like to mention also that you can change the answers accordingly, but also if a client isn't comfortable answering or you're not, as a rater, uncomfortable answering one of these questions, they can be skipped over or left unanswered. So I'm going to select next, and it'll bring you to the next section of the case mix, which asks you to indicate whether an illness is affecting the client's health now or within the past year. And you'll see it asks if it's currently affecting the client's health, if they're taking medication, or if they've seen or been hospitalized, seen a doctor or been hospitalized within the last 12 months. And if these things are impacting you, just simply check off. So I'll say, allergies are currently affecting the client's health and they're currently taking medication. But it also asks about back problems, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, immune system problems, kidney disease, neurological conditions. Obviously, if there isn't anything listed here, but there are things impacting, you can select other important medical conditions. Or if they're not experiencing anything in this section, you can skip over and select next. The nice thing about WellnessCheck, here it's saying that I didn't indicate one illness, which I did, so I'm going to select OK. Now, in this section, it asks about the client's health overall. So in general, would you say the client's health is currently excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor during the initial top? it stated and was selected, the client's health was very good. So I'm just going to leave it with that answer. The next question asks about the client, if the client has seen a physician for any medical reasons within the past 2 months. There's a little helpful drop down, and you can select and answer this question accordingly. Then it also asks how many medications a client is currently taking. I'm going to select the drop down so you can see that you can select an answer. So I'm going to select the next button. It brings you to the next section of the case mix, which asks about medications that the client is taking for stress, mood, or other psychological or substance abuse issues. The nice thing about this section, I'll show you, if you start typing in or rater starts typing in a medication, it provides a helpful list. If they find their medication on this list, they can just simply select it and it will fill in. And then they can go in and they can answer the quantity per dose, the units per dose, the doses per day. Now, every 90 days, let's say they're no longer taking a medication and there's a medication that's listed because it was pre-populated, and they're no longer taking it, they can simply select the delete button, and that medication they're no longer taking will be removed. But let's say they're taking a new medication that they want to add. They simply select the add medication button, and additional fields will appear, and they can enter that new medication in accordingly. So I'm going to select the next button, and this brings me to the last section of the case mix. Now, this is a new section that we have added online, especially for our substance abuse agencies or agencies that deal heavily with substance abuse. This pertains to the opioid crisis that has been gripping the United States. And so it asks if your client is receiving medication-assisted treatment for an opioid use disorder. It was previously answered as no, but I'll select the drop-down. You'll see that yes is an option. But for this training, I'm going to leave it as no. It also asks what medication the client is taking for this medication-assisted treatment. I'm going to select the drop-down. We list 3 options. And then lastly, it asks how they're taking the medication, if it's orally, via patch, implant, or injection. So I'm going to leave that blank, and I'm going to select submit. And this is going to bring me immediately to the clinical scale. And so now on the clinical scale, it asks the rater how much of the time during the past 2 weeks the client, which is a child, as you can see on this form, has been impacted by, had trouble falling asleep, had nightmares, woke up during the night. Now, they answer the questions accordingly. Once again, I'll mention that if that question doesn't pertain to the client or the rater is unable to answer, they can simply skip over that question. But I do want to stress that the more information that is provided, the more questions that are answered, the more thorough of a client report will be generated. So I'm going to scroll through quickly and review a few more of these with you. So physically hurt a person or an animal, or had desires to seriously hurt someone, had trouble waiting, done what was asked of him or her, had trouble standing up for himself or herself, been too shy, gotten along well with others, seemed scared around people, eaten too little, been a picky eater, had trouble staying still, been able to talk but refused to do so, had trouble looking people in the eye when talking to them. So I'm going to come down here, been afraid of being alone or did not want to be alone, been stuck in a certain mood or been unable to change, shown little emotion when you expected some type of reaction, hurt himself or herself, followed rules to your satisfaction. So I'm going to come down to the end. Now, this clinical scale assessment has 48 questions to it. So here at the end, heard things that were not there, made inappropriate sexual comments, or caused someone to worry about his or her sexual activity. So when they come to the end and they've answered the questions, they select submit. Now, I want to point out again, if a question has been skipped over and not answered, WellnessCheck prompts a rater to pay attention to those unanswered questions. There may be a client that likes to answer every single question, so it gives them the opportunity to go back and answer the questions that they missed. But if they did intend to skip over a question, they're able to do so and simply select the OK link, or OK button, I should say. And when they're finished completing the assessment, it'll let them know, WellnessCheck will let them know the questionnaire is completed. Now, when they do this, if you're taking now for HIPAA laws, for confidentiality purposes, a rater or a client is unable to hit the back button. So I'm going to need to close out and log back in to Richard Jackson's account. And it really, in the amount of time that it takes to log back into WellnessCheck, the report should already be there and accessible to you. So once again, it brings you, when you log into your client dashboard, so you're going to want to go to your shared client screen by coming back up to the blue WellnessCheck bar, selecting the drop down, and then selecting shared client. So we were just focusing on Lillian Cabarro, and we were just working out of the manage link. So now, under the reports column, we're going to want to select the view link so we can view the report, the client report for her. And so there you'll see. The nice thing about WellnessCheck, it's instantaneous. You should receive a report quite quickly. And so a report is a date link. So the date that assessment was completed, so you'll see April 28th. It also lists on this report screen the type of assessment that was completed. So it was a child taught. And then the status lists OK. And sometimes you may see pending under status. If you happen to see pending because you log in, your fingers are quick moving and you logged into WellnessCheck quickly and hadn't given it time to upload that report, just simply select the refresh button here up on your browser. And usually when you hit that refresh button, status will change to OK and you can access the client report. Now, as you're in and you're building the report, you're building your history, another thing I want to mention under reports are only available for 6 months in WellnessCheck. just so you know, even though they're only listed for 6 months, they're always available to you. If you have a client that leaves and comes back into your services and you want to access an old client report, just simply contact our customer service department and they will be more than happy to get that report for you. We can go back 20 years even if need be. So I'm going to select April 28th so you can see the assessment. Now, only a little bit of information had been updated. So it was the case mix was already pre-populated, but the clinical scale was not completed. So there will not be any information to share. So I'd like to show you a better report than this, but I wanted to show you what it looks like when you do open the link. We do like to recommend, because assessments are only available for 6 months, feel free to print the forms. If you have a paper file for the client, you can do that. You're also able to download a client report. If some of our agencies download the reports into their EMR systems, and so that's an option as well. But I'd like to show you a better report than this. So I'm going to come down and select this report for April 23. So it opens up the child client report for Lillian. Now, for the client report, there's normally 2 pages to the client report. Now, this first page contains basic information about the client. It includes their medical history and any hospitalizations or any prescription medications that they're taking. It also provides any endorsed hallmark symptoms or stressful events, so you'll see those here. Mental health issues, medical issues, or stressful events. And so when we come to page 2, this shows the prevalence and severity of patients' problems. So this was a child assessment. And so there are 13 behavioral health domains that are associated with the child taught. So you'll see here, you have ADHD, you have assertiveness with assertiveness, you have bowel, you have conduct, you have depression, you have psychosis, separation anxiety, you have worrisome sexual behavior, you have sleep, you have strength, suicidality, eating issues, and violence. Now, the numbers on the side of the graph demonstrate the number of standard deviations above normal. So this is actually the normal line here is 0. And these are standard deviations are compared to the general population. So any high numbers are problems and any negative numbers are strengths. The first bar on the left represents the initial top, the very first top that was completed, and any additional bars. So you'll see that one follow-up top had been completed, but it can carry on. You can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bars for follow-up top. Now, under the graph, you will see the date of when the top was administered, so that's here, and then you'll see the severity level for that domain. Yellow is mild, orange is moderate, and red is severe. At the bottom of the page, you will see any critical items marked as occurring during the past 2 weeks, as well as a place for the client's signature. We really encourage our providers to share the second page with their clients, or if it's a child, the parent of a client. The smallest change in their behavioral health is very significant, and they really are eager to see those changes. I'm going to come back to the report screen to access the multi-rater report. So you'll see here to the right of the screen gives you a brief description about the multi-rater report and the multi-rater report over time. So to access the multi-rater report, select the multi-rater report button, and this will bring me to the multi-rater and open up the multi-rater report for Lillian. Now, the multi-rater report provides a multiple perspective based upon the ratings of the different people who have completed a top assessment for a client. So any raters, like the parents, the therapist, a physician, so a medical doctor or a social worker, anyone that completes this top assessment contributes to the multi-rater report. It provides a 360-degree picture of the client's behavioral health challenges and strengths. And so by allowing everyone involved in the client's life to have a voice, and by collecting it in one place, it helps to really measure and track the progress and make accurate assessments towards or for a client. And so as you can see, there is a severe, moderate, mild, and healthy range. And over here to the left, you'll see the 13 behavioral health domains that are and that were provided on the client report. And so I'm going to draw your attention down to this legend or this key at the bottom, and you'll see that the parent and the public worker have been assigned a symbol. And so I'm going to come back up to the top, and so you can see where the symbol lands in the severe, moderate, mild, or healthy range is according to how that rater completed the assessment for this client. And it gives you a good idea. Do the rater's opinions fall in the same place? So as you can see, they both felt the same related to attention problems for Lillian. But for depression, one of the raters rated Lillian in the healthy range, but another rater rated Lillian in the moderate. So as a caseworker, as a therapist, it really draws your attention to look at these differences, look at these comparisons, and maybe get a little more information from these raters. Why did you rate this client the way you did? Also, if you happen to see one of the symbols fall under the incomplete battery, that's just because that rater did not answer enough of the questions on the clinical scale to be able to make an assessment for that behavioral health domain. Now, you're able to also print the multi-rater report if this is something that you would like to do so. So I'm going to select the back button, and it brings you back to the report screen for your client. So I showed you how to view the report and how to view a multi-rater. So we're going to come back to the shared client screen. So we really had focused on the important sections of the shared client screen, which is the assess column, selecting the manage link. This brings you into the rater screen, and this is where you take and administer the top. And then we reviewed the report column, the view link, and we reviewed the report section for the client. So the next thing I'd like to review with you, and these are just a couple of other additional helpful sections in WellnessCheck that you do have access to, which is now we're going to come up to back to the blue WellnessCheck bar, and we're going to select history. And it brings you to the history screen for your account. And in this section, as you're building your history, this is a nice section you'll want to familiarize yourself with. So I'm going to select check all and then hit refresh. But the nice thing about this section, so any forms that have been printed for a client, you can look up that information. Any forms that have been emailed, you can select that and hit refresh, and it'll list all of the clients that top assessments have been, or list all the clients, I should say, that the top assessment has been emailed. An email has been sent to them. Any multi-rater reports that have been viewed. So you can see Richard viewed a multi-rater report for Lillian today, and it provides you the date and the time that it was viewed. So if you're trying to troubleshoot something, or you're trying to remember when you may have emailed forms to a rater, use this function, the history function, and hit refresh. This is a helpful tool that is accessible to you. Now, the next thing I want to show you on the blue wellness check bar is the account function, and there's a drop down. Now, you can go in and select your profile by selecting the edit profile from the drop down, and it brings you to your edit profile screen. And so if you need to update any of your information in this section, like a telephone number, if your email address happens to change, you can update that information in this section. And when you make changes, simply select submit changes, and WellnessCheck will save those changes for you. You can also change your password. So when you first log in to WellnessCheck, this is where you will go to change that temporary password to a password or a password of your choosing that you want by simply selecting change password from the drop down. So you enter in the temporary password and enter in the new password and confirm the new password. And then click on the change password button, and those changes will be saved for you. And lastly, you can log out using the account drop down, or simply logging out from the blue wellness check bar. So when you log out, you're brought to the screen thanking you for visiting our site. Now I'm going to select the login and go back to the WellnessCheck login screen, because I just want to point out and show you if you happen to forget your password and you need to recreate a new one, you can do so by selecting the Forgot Create Password link on the WellnessCheck page, and it will walk you through the process of changing and recreating that password. We have your email address on file, an email will with a link will be sent to you, and you can it will walk you through the process of changing your password. Now, I like to just also mention here at this point in the training that everything that I viewed with you will be also included in that top technical guide that you will be receiving. Screenshots, step-by-step instructions are provided to you in that manual. So now that's the end of WellnessCheck, learning about WellnessCheck. So I'm going to come back to my presentation. And so now we're going to start part 2. So when a caseworker is in WellnessCheck, they're in their radar screen for Lillian. You can see that there are some similarities and there are a couple of minor differences to their radar screen. They have the name column, which lists the name of the raters. And so you'll see Donna is the parent, Lillian is the client, and the caseworker is listed as the public agency worker of record. And they also have the consumer registration, the case mix, and the clinical scale available. Now, when they administer the initial talk to the client, they are able to add raters to the rater screen. This button appears, and then they are able to add you as a therapist by simply selecting Share with a Therapist button. Now, when a caseworker selects this button, it brings them to share the client Lillian Cabero with a therapist. So the therapists are listed. The location of where the therapist is located is listed, as well as a share link. So I shared Lillian with Richard Jackson, who is the therapist. So I would find my therapist on that list. So I found Richard, and I will come over and select the share link. And when you do that, now the therapist has been added to the caseworker's radar screen as the therapist. It's as easy as that. So all of the information that the caseworker has added to this radar screen is now visible on your therapist shared client screen. So that's the end to this training. And so I just want to end. So for more information, or if you have any questions, please feel free to refer to the top technical guide that will be provided to you. Also feel free to watch this video as a refresher if you feel there is a need to do so. Also, I'd like to just mention, feel free to contact our customer service department. When you do contact our customer service department, you will receive a live person. They are available to you Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and on Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. Also, if you'd like to learn more about outcome referrals, feel free to visit our website at www.outcomereferrals.com. And I thank you all for participating. Goodbye.